I want to kind of gauge your view on what role procurement has to play, and we'll use the word procurement broadly here, especially given the makeup of the team that you've just said, which is a very non-traditional procurement team, and maybe a procurement team of the future.
Yeah. Oh, this is an interesting one. So I think so I got given this project when I got back from my sabbatical, and they were like, hey, ESG sits in your area now for hand. We've got to work all this out. And I was like, okay, no worries. So yeah, I've been literally swallowing the book on ESG recently. And I think my take on it is we've got a very, very unique opportunity to influence sustainability in our organizations and through supply chains. My take on this is also, I think we're in the midst of a generational change, and people are making very, very clear and like informed decisions around the impact they want to have on the planet. And my take on this is our next procurement leaders will have even more data at their fingertips than we do now. I still feel like we're kind of like guessing a bit. I think if you work in a manufacturing or production environment, I think it's a bit different. But certainly if you work in tech, like scope 3 is a minefield. Like I cannot find any solid ground to stand on that gives me like accurate data. So yeah, so I think we are in a very, very unique position. And I think if you want to be a procurement professional in the future, if you're not an advocate for ESG, you're probably in the wrong role. I think this is going to become like a fundamental pillar of everybody's job within this area. So I think like there's that around like your own personal development, or what kind of person you want to be when you're playing your procurement role or wearing that hat. Then also like organizations that truly want to partner with you and that you want to work with really need to be aligned to your values. Because as an organization, there's no point being the best vendor in the market if your ESG strategy is at complete odds with your customers. It's going to cause a lot of friction. And ultimately, it's probably going to be a decision which means that somebody decides not to work with you. So, and I think, you can look at B Corp companies or, someone like Triodos Bank that's very green. Like they're only going to work with organizations that align with that market that they're going for and their like underlying beliefs as an organization. So I think like for me, huge opportunity here to really drive like what the future is around like emissions, making sure that you're net zero by certain dates. How you maintain that is again another bit of a minefield. Like I can't find a single framework for measuring this.
There isn't, I don't think. I was doing some research earlier this year, and the only frameworks I could find were around investments opportunities, and I read through so many of those, and they still told me nothing. Really, it's impossible at the moment.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit challenging, I'll be honest. But I think from my point of view, I think the best thing that we can ask of our suppliers, third parties, vendors, whatever you want to call them, is they need to be transparent and share their plans. And if we can get that as a starter for 10, then I think the discussions we have around how you reduce that or how you offset that through carbon credits or however you want to kind of architect that relationship you have with them, there needs to be transparency on both sides. Like, what is your plan? Like, what's Monzo's like, or my plan or my target and ambition date for net zero? What's yours? And let's try and work out the delta in between and make sure that we can both work together to achieve that. But then also, like, you've got nuances around within like Google, you can opt to choose which region you host your data in and which where you're processing. Now they have some regions which are more green than others. So you can electively start to choose, if I host out of Norway, it's going to be better than a host out of, another country. And you can reduce your emissions by just being very careful about making some choices. So I'd love to remove some of the guesswork because I think if you really want to make this part of like your underlying decision-making process when selecting a third party, you need to have some consistency in how you're measuring your current outputs, how you assess what your new vendor may introduce into your carbon emissions, and then make a decision based on that. And then you can bring in, contractual clauses around like, how do you want to work together? Do you put penalties in? Do you give incentives for being green? I think there's different ways that you can do it. But I think for me, work together collaboratively on this and somehow try and come up with a framework which is consistent across like all of it. It would be lovely to not have quite as much guesswork in this space.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. It's I think it's a really cool challenge though to have. I think you're probably equally excited and daunted by
yes, that's exactly
the
how
task
I feel.
at the same time, right? But I the way I see it is that we'll probably have C-suite roles that are chief sustainability officers at almost every company in the future. They'll probably come from a sort of futuristic procurement team, probably one that kind of resembles what you've started to put together at Monzo. So I think, yeah, like I think your advice there is pretty cool.